Have you ever asked yourself why you truly want to learn English? Not just the surface reason, like passing an exam or impressing your teacher, but the deeper reason that keeps you awake at night, the reason that lights a fire inside you. This is where the journey begins. When you know your why, everything changes. Without it, studying feels like a burden, like carrying a heavy backpack uphill. With it, every effort feels meaningful, even exciting. Think of it this way. If you are learning English only because someone told you to, you will probably stop when things get hard. But if you are learning because you dream of working in another country, connecting with people across the world, reading books in their original language, or simply proving to yourself that you can, then your motivation becomes a source of power. It pulls you forward even on days when you feel tired or discouraged. Consider a traveler standing at the foot of a long road. If the traveler doesn't know where the road leads, every step feels confusing and meaningless. But if the traveler knows that the road leads to a beautiful city full of opportunities, then each step, no matter how small, feels worthwhile. Your reason for learning English is that city at the end of the road. Ask yourself, what doors will English open for me? Will it help me build a better career? Will it allow me to meet people from different cultures? Will it give me confidence to express myself to the world? Once you find your reason, you will discover energy you never knew you had. Motivation becomes less about pushing yourself and more about being pulled by a vision that excites you. When Daniel, the young student in the story, asked himself why he wanted to learn English, he realized it was more than just about grades. It was about his future, his dream of traveling, and his desire to connect with people across borders. That clarity turned his struggle into a mission, and that is the first step, finding your why. Because without a why, the how will always feel heavy. But with a strong why, even the hardest how becomes possible. Strong motivation works like fuel for a journey. Without it, you may start walking, but soon your energy fades and the road feels endless. With it, you move faster, and even when you stumble, you rise again with determination. Motivation does not just make you start, it makes you continue, and it makes you accelerate. Think of someone who treats English as only a subject in school. They study the night before an exam, memorize lists of words, and then quickly forget them after the test. Their progress is slow because their motivation is shallow. Now compare that with someone who dreams of giving a speech in English to an international audience, or someone who wants to study a favorite book in its original language. Every time they open a dictionary or repeat a sentence, they are not just studying, they are chasing a dream. That passion makes them absorb knowledge faster, remember longer, and practice with more joy. Daniel's story proves this. Once he connected his studies to his dream of studying abroad, his attitude shifted. He no longer waited for assignments from his teacher, he began creating his own assignments. He started listening to English podcasts while walking, watching English shows without subtitles, and even speaking to himself in the mirror. This did not feel like homework anymore. It felt like preparation for the life he wanted. Because his motivation was strong, his brain worked harder, his heart stayed engaged, and his progress became visible within weeks. Motivation is not magic, but it feels like it. It transforms effort into energy. It turns late nights into opportunities and mistakes into lessons. When you are motivated, your focus sharpens, your time becomes precious, and every resource around you suddenly feels like a tool you can use. That is why strong motivation is the greatest accelerator in learning English. It pushes you beyond ordinary limits and takes you to extraordinary results. Imagine planting a seed in the ground and then forgetting about it for weeks, only to return one day with buckets of water, hoping it will grow overnight. Of course it won't. A plant needs a little water every day, not a flood once in a while. Learning English is exactly the same. Daily consistency is the sunlight and water that help your skills grow, while occasional hard work is like a sudden storm. It may look dramatic, but it doesn't last long enough to create real change. So many learners make the mistake of cramming. They study for hours before an exam, memorize hundreds of words in one sitting, and then feel proud of their effort. But soon, most of what they learned fades away, because the brain remembers best through repetition, not through sudden overload. Daily practice, even as little as 15 or 20 minutes, creates stronger memory, builds habits, and keeps English alive in your mind. Daniel understood this lesson quickly. At first, he thought he could spend an entire weekend studying English and then take a break for a week. But he noticed that by the time he returned, he had forgotten much of what he had studied. So he changed his approach. He made English a part of his everyday life. Each morning he read one page of an English storybook. In the afternoon he listened to a short podcast while walking. At night he spoke out loud a few sentences about his day. These small steps seemed simple, but after weeks the results were clear. He could read faster, understand more, and even speak with greater confidence. Consistency has another hidden power. It trains your mind to see English not as a subject but as a lifestyle. When you touch the language daily, you stop fearing it. You stop seeing it as a mountain and start seeing it as a road you walk every day. Little by little, those steps add up, and suddenly you look back and realize you have traveled far. That is why daily consistency always beats occasional hard work. A learner who studies a little every day will always surpass the learner who studies a lot, but only once in a while. It's not about how much time you spend in a single sitting, but about how regularly you feed your mind. Just as steady drops of water can shape a stone, steady practice can shape your fluency. Think about the very first time a child tries to walk. They wobble, stumble, and fall countless times. But do we call those falls failures? No, we call them steps toward walking. In the same way, mistakes in English are not proof that you cannot learn. They are proof that you are learning. Each mistake is a sign that you dared to try, and every time you try, you move closer to fluency. Many learners fear mistakes so much that they remain silent. They wait until they can speak perfectly, but perfection never comes that way. Silence builds walls, while mistakes build bridges. The truth is, mistakes are like teachers. They point out the gaps in your knowledge. They highlight what needs more practice, and they help you grow faster. Without mistakes, there is no progress. Daniel used to feel embarrassed whenever he spoke English. If he pronounced a word incorrectly, his classmates laughed, and he wished he could disappear. But then one of his teachers told him, "Every mistake you make is like a brick. You can either let it weigh you down, or you can use it to build your house." That changed his view completely. He started speaking more, even if he knew errors would come. Instead of hiding, he welcomed corrections. And soon, the very mistakes he once feared became the reason for his rapid improvement. Mistakes also make the learning journey human. They remind us that fluency is not about being flawless, but about being fearless. The most successful English learners are not the ones who never make errors, but the ones who are brave enough to make them, learn from them, and keep going. So the next time you stumble over a sentence, mispronounce a word, or use the wrong grammar, remember this: you are walking the same path every fluent speaker once walked. They too made mistakes, laughed at themselves, and kept trying. Mistakes are not the end of the journey. They are the footsteps that lead you forward. Picture yourself standing at the base of a tall mountain. From below, the peak looks unreachable, and the climb feels impossible. That's how learning English can seem when you only focus on advanced books, difficult grammar, or fast conversations. But if you begin with small, simple steps, like reading short books or listening to easy stories, the mountain suddenly feels climbable. You gain strength with every step, and your confidence grows naturally. Simple books are like gentle teachers. They use everyday words, short sentences, and familiar ideas. When Daniel first started, he picked up The Little Prince. At the beginning, he could only understand a little. But because the story was simple and full of repetition, he recognized words more easily. Every page gave him a small victory, and those victories built his confidence. Instead of feeling defeated, he felt encouraged. Listening to stories has the same effect. When you hear English told in a natural, simple rhythm, your brain starts to catch patterns. At first, you might understand only a few words, but with time, those few words connect into sentences, and then into full ideas. Daniel used to listen to bedtime stories recorded for children. Though the language was easy, it helped him build a habit of listening every night. Slowly, he noticed that when people spoke around him, he could understand faster and with less effort. What makes simple books and stories powerful is not just the language. They also touch your emotions. Stories spark curiosity, imagination, and memory. You remember characters, adventures, and lessons, which makes the words stay longer in your mind. Unlike a dry grammar exercise, a story feels alive. You don't just study it, you experience it. The more stories you read and hear, the more confident you become. Confidence grows from understanding, and understanding grows from simple, steady practice. That's why starting with easy books and stories is not a weakness, it's wisdom. They give you the strength to move toward harder books and faster conversations. Step by step, you climb the mountain, and one day, without even realizing it, you find yourself standing at the peak, speaking English with confidence. Imagine learning to swim by only reading about swimming, memorizing the strokes, and watching videos of others moving through the water, yet never stepping into the pool yourself. Could you ever truly swim that way? Of course not. The same is true for English. You can study grammar books, build long lists of vocabulary, and listen to countless lessons. But until you open your mouth and start speaking, even imperfectly, you will never feel the water of fluency. Speaking early is like jumping into the pool. At first, the water feels cold, and you may splash awkwardly. Your sentences break, your pronunciation stumbles, and you might feel embarrassed, but every time you try, you become stronger. Just as the swimmer learns balance only by moving in water, the English learner gains fluency only by practicing aloud. Daniel discovered this the hard way. For months, he focused only on reading and writing, telling himself he would speak once he felt ready. But readiness never came. He realized he was waiting for perfection, and perfection was holding him back. One day, he decided to change. He began speaking out loud to himself, describing his room, narrating what he was doing, even practicing conversations in the mirror. It felt strange at first, but slowly his tongue grew used to the rhythm of English. Later, he joined an online language exchange. The first conversations were messy. He forgot words, mixed grammar, and sometimes froze. But his partners encouraged him, and every mistake became a lesson. Within weeks, he felt his sentences flowing more smoothly. Speaking early had unlocked a new part of his learning, the part that no book could teach. The secret is this: fluency is not built in silence, it grows in sound. When you speak, even with mistakes, you train your brain and tongue to work together. You stop translating word by word and start thinking directly in English. That process cannot begin if you wait for the perfect moment. The perfect moment never arrives. The brave moment does. So, the path to fluency is not about waiting until you are flawless. It is about being fearless enough to begin. The earlier you speak, the faster your English comes alive. Learning English is like planting a tree. You place a small seed in the soil, but the very next day, nothing seems to happen. A week later, still nothing. Many people lose hope at this stage and stop watering the seed. But if you keep caring for it, day after day, week after week, something amazing begins to happen. A small green shoot breaks through the ground, and with time, that tiny sprout grows into a tall, strong tree. This is exactly how patience and persistence shape your journey with English. At first, progress can feel invisible. You study new words, you listen to stories, you practice speaking, yet it seems as if nothing is changing. This is the moment where most learners quit, believing they are not talented or smart enough. But in truth, the progress is there. It is simply hidden beneath the surface, just like the roots of a tree spreading underground before the first leaf appears. Daniel experienced this himself. For the first 3 months he felt frustrated. He studied daily, but could not see big improvements. His sentences were still broken, his listening was still slow, and his confidence still shaky. But instead of giving up, he reminded himself that every day of practice was like adding one drop of water to the seed. He kept going. Then, one day, while watching a movie in English, he realized he understood whole scenes without translation. It felt like a miracle, but in reality, it was the quiet reward of his patience and persistence. Fluency does not arrive suddenly, like a lightning strike. It grows silently, slowly, and then reveals itself when you least expect it. That is why patience is essential. You must give yourself time. And persistence is the companion of patience. It keeps you walking even when the road feels long. Together, they guarantee that your effort will bloom into results. The learners who succeed are not always the fastest or the most gifted. They are the ones who refuse to stop. They know that every mistake, every page read, every sentence spoken is part of the journey. And one day, they wake up to discover that the language that once felt impossible now flows naturally from their lips. So remember, fluency is not a race, it is a garden. Water it with patience, nurture it with persistence, and trust that in time the harvest will come. Surrounding yourself with English is like living in an environment where the air itself teaches you. Imagine moving to a country where everyone speaks English. You would hear it in the streets, in shops, on the radio, in conversations. Even without formal lessons, your brain would start absorbing the language simply because it is everywhere. But here's the secret. You don't have to move abroad to create that kind of environment. You can build it right where you are. Daniel once believed that he needed to travel overseas to truly master English. But when that wasn't possible, he decided to bring English into his daily life. He changed the language on his phone to English, so every time he unlocked it, he practiced new words. He placed sticky notes on household items, mirror, door, table, until those words became second nature. He started listening to English music while walking, watching English shows during meals, and even thinking in English before sleeping. Slowly, English stopped being a subject in his notebook and became part of his everyday world. The environment you create shapes your progress more than you realize. If you only meet English during class or study time, it will always feel like a stranger. But if you invite it into your daily life through songs, books, podcasts, conversations, it becomes a friend, a natural presence that you get used to without pressure. The more you hear it, read it, and see it, the more your brain accepts it as normal. But there's another layer, mindset. Surrounding yourself with English is not only about the external world, but also about how you see yourself. If you believe English is too hard, or I'm not good at languages, then even the richest environment will feel heavy. But if you tell yourself, I can learn this step by step, then every song, every sentence, every mistake turns into an opportunity. A supportive mindset is the soil in which your environment can truly work. So surround yourself with English in both ways, physically and mentally. Fill your world with its sounds and words, and shape your mind to welcome it with curiosity instead of fear. That combination turns every moment of your day into a lesson, and without even realizing it, you begin to think, dream, and live in English. Believing in your own ability is the foundation of learning English or any great skill. Without that belief, every challenge feels heavier, every mistake feels final, and every step feels uncertain. But when you trust yourself, the same challenges transform into opportunities. Mistakes become lessons, and each step feels like progress. The mind is powerful. What you believe about yourself shapes what you can achieve. Think of two learners. The first one says, I can never be fluent. My accent is bad, my memory is weak, and I'm too old to learn. Even if this person studies, their own doubt becomes a wall blocking their progress. The second learner says, I might struggle, but I will learn. Every day I am improving. This person may make the same mistakes, but they rise faster because they believe there is a destination waiting for them. The difference between the two is not intelligence, it is belief. Daniel, too, faced this choice. In his early days, he compared himself with classmates who spoke faster and understood more. He often thought, maybe English isn't for me. But then he realized something simple yet powerful. All those fluent speakers were once beginners too. None of them were born speaking English. If they could learn, so could he. That shift in belief gave him courage. Every time he stumbled, he told himself, "This is proof I am learning, not proof I cannot." Slowly, his confidence grew, and with confidence came speed, fluency, and joy. Belief acts like an inner voice. If it whispers doubt, you hesitate. If it speaks courage, you move forward. And here is the truth. The way you see yourself in the journey matters as much as the grammar you learn or the books you read. Because when you believe you can, your actions align with that belief. You practice more, you take more risks, and you stay longer on the path. That persistence eventually leads you to fluency. So when you ask, can I really learn English very fast? The answer depends first on you. If you believe you cannot, then you will stop yourself before you even begin. But if you believe you can, then no obstacle will be strong enough to hold you back. The greatest teacher, the greatest resource, the greatest motivation is inside you, your own belief.